Hello, friends, and welcome back to another set of malicious compliance stories. Our first story today is about a husband, a pregnant wife, and one glorious act of petty revenge involving leftover pizza. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. All right, let's get into it. No more pizza for me, she said. When my wife, who I love very much, and I were expecting, one evening we ordered our favorite dishes, a cheese burst pizza for her absolute favorite, and chicken tacos for myself. Now, my wife has this habit of sneaking bites off my plate, which upsets me, she knows, but tolerate nonetheless. However, that night, she devoured almost half of my chicken tacos out of the blue, leaving me hungry even after finishing my meal. We had a large pizza, enough for me to feel somewhat full after one slice and still have 3 slices left for her. She offered to make me a grilled cheese, but I could tell she was only doing so that I don't eat more of her pizza. But here comes the twist. She was feeling extremely full after eating the tacos and a slice of pizza and said to me, "So I guess it means no more pizza for me now." However, I know how she's like based on the fact she moved the leftovers to her designated area, off limits to me, without voicing. But I knew that she planned to have them for breakfast the next day, eyeing them as she carefully placed it. I woke up earlier than her the next morning, knowing she had her heart set on those pizza slices. However, I couldn't resist maliciously complying to what she said and took her words to face value. That day, I savored every delicious bite of that leftover pizza, ensuring I enjoyed it uninterrupted in my cabin. Wife texted me at work, confused to find the box of pizza empty. "Where's my pizza?" With a sly emoji, I fired back, "Well, you did say no more pizza for you that night, so I decided to save it for myself for breakfast since you weren't having any." I was on the couch that night, but it was worth it, and I'd do it again. Let's be real here. No more pizza for me was not a statement, it was a test. And you, my friend, aced it in the most diabolically polite way possible. You didn't yell, you didn't argue, you just honored her words like a saint with impeccable listening comprehension. That's not malicious compliance. That's marital enlightenment. And our second story. Don't demote the guy who knows your expiration dates. Over a decade ago, I was a material handler at a manufacturing company. Pretty tedious work, breaking down large batches of materials into smaller, manageable quantities for the workers. Got to keep every station supplied, well-organized, and order materials to meet future quotas. One day, I notice a new lot of parts are out of spec. They're too small and will damage the final product, causing it to fail testing later. This part comes in lots between 5K and 30K, depending on what was ordered and past inspection from the supplier. I put a hold on the lot of 25K, emailed the appropriate people, follow procedure. Looking through the system, I realized we only have about 1K on hand. One more lot in warehouse for 7K. This is enough for 1 week. I place another order for 30K. We usually get 25K. It takes 2 weeks to get, another week for cleaning and polishing. I send off another email informing of the shortage and how it will impact production. The only response I got was, "We'll look into it." After we ran out of parts, I was ordered to take the out-of-spec parts off hold. I refused. An engineer hadn't cleared them. The engineer was on vacation, out of town, and the other didn't know. A few days later, some random engineer from another department told me they were good, and I was forced to release the lot. I got a verbal warning for insubordination and relieved of my MH duties. Got put back on production. 2 weeks later, all the parts start failing. 2 weeks worth of about 110 people's labor, machine time, untold tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of individual parts wasted. Chaos erupts, mandatory OT set, and I'm just smiling. About 2 months goes by, 4th of July weekend coming up, and I got 5-day weekend with PTO. Managers tried to cancel, but I already had it approved in January. Almost everyone in the room was going to be at work the 5th and 6th, Friday and Saturday. People were quitting left and right, being forced to work 60 hours, burned them out. Edit. Since we'd been working these few special machines so hard on OT, the material was running out that it used to spray on the parts. To replace it, it required a 3-day cycle in which we usually happened on a Friday through Sunday, every couple of months. We were about a week ahead of schedule with the OT. I knew it, but no one else was paying attention. I decided to take a half day on Tuesday so I could leave during the team leads meeting. that I used to be a part of? On my way out, I mentioned this little problem. A couple of them ran to confirm. I grabbed a soda and left. Got a text from a coworker. They ran out of material Wednesday morning. Everyone got a 4-day weekend like they were supposed to. 10 people, including myself, quit on Monday. Moral of the story, don't F with the people that do all your future planning if you can't do it yourself. OP, this is the kind of story that makes every underappreciated worker nod like, yeah, I'd have done the same. You were the backbone of that operation, the guy who knew how the gears turned, literally and figuratively. The second management ignored your warning, they sealed their own fate. Positive, you proved your worth without saying a word. Negative, the good workers probably suffered from upper management's stupidity. Still, this story is a beautiful reminder, when you don't listen to the planner, the whole plan falls apart. And our next story. Customer demanded I hold her 500 pounds worth of Lego, then wanted a receipt before paying, then demanded I ship it to London. It was a busy Saturday, and I was one of 2 people behind the till. A woman entered the shop and came directly to the till checkouts, pointed at me, and said, "I want you to help me." This encounter automatically felt rude and patronizing, but I still came out from behind the till, smiling, and politely asked her what she would like help with. The woman proceeded to ignore my question and simply turned around and walked towards the Lego section. So I followed her, but could already tell this was going to be a difficult customer. Once we arrived at the Lego section, she told me to hold out my hands as she proceeded to hand me the 4 most expensive Lego sets the shop sold. Then, without conversing, she walked straight back to the till checkouts while I followed carrying her items. As I was scanning the items through the till, I could feel her staring straight at me, but I could tell she was not someone who would have appreciated polite small talk, so I decided to just silently get on with it. After I'd scanned through her items, she refused a bag, which I thought was odd as these Lego sets were not small and I could see she didn't have any bags on her. I told her the sum total of 496 pounds. However, she refused to pay me until she'd seen her receipt, which I told her multiple times was not possible as the receipt will only come out of the machine once the payment has been processed. Something she clearly didn't want to hear. After explaining multiple times the ins and outs of any sort of transaction that the payment comes before the receipt, she eventually accepted defeat and paid for her items. However, as soon as the transaction was complete, she told me she wanted these items sent to London tomorrow. I, very confused at this point, then began to explain to her that we don't do such requests, and if you want to send these to London, you'll have to do it on your own accord separately. I also gave her the option that she could order the same products online and have them delivered to London. That was all I could do to help. As you can imagine, she was most unhappy with my response and demanded an immediate refund. Once the refund was settled, I apologized for any inconvenience as she stormed out of the shop without saying a word. I love customer service. Maybe she's a really rich lady that never usually does her own shopping, so she was mad that she had to stoop to shopping herself as she usually has people for that. This would explain her treating you like a weird butler person and not even talking much to you because you're just the help. And our last story. He called me country boy and stole my water. So I bought his house. About 20 years ago, my parents sold off most of their farmland and gave me the old farmhouse and a few acres to go with it. I grew up there, and even after all the big money developers started sniffing around the area, I decided to stay. I liked the peace, the trees, and the sound of crickets instead of traffic. My place had one small quirk. The property next door shared my well and septic line. It wasn't an issue back when the house belonged to our longtime caretakers. They were good, honest people who treated the land like it was theirs, but respected what wasn't. After they passed, their daughter sold the property to a city builder named Richard. Everyone just called him Jerk. And oh, did he live up to the name. From the first day, I knew he'd be a problem. He rolled in with a Mercedes, an attitude, and blueprints for a weekend getaway. He tore down the cozy old farmhouse, put up something that looked like a glass shoebox, and converted the barn into a 6-car garage with a bar and apartment upstairs. The first time we met, he tried to park one of his contractor trucks halfway on my property. "Hey," I called out walking over, "you're on my property." He looked me up and down. I was in muddy boots, still holding a wrench from working in my garage, and said, "Relax, country boy, there's plenty of room. That was the moment I knew exactly what kind of neighbor I had. I told him there's plenty of room on your property, move it. He smirked, don't get your overalls in a twist. It went downhill from there. His contractor started parking all over my land. I asked nicely twice, and nothing changed. So that weekend, I put up a simple fence, just posts and planks straight down the property line. The next morning, Jerk came stomping across the yard like a toddler who'd lost his toy. You need to take that fence down, he barked. Not a chance, I said. You stay on your land, I'll stay on mine. He sneered, turned red, and marched back toward his shiny pickup. 2 days later, half my fence was mysteriously gone, and the trucks were back. All right, I thought, you want to play games? Let's play. That weekend, I accidentally left the irrigation running in that same area for a full day and night, turned it into a swamp. On Monday morning, one of his contractors tried to park there and sank up to the axles in mud. Took a 2-hour wait and a tow truck from the city to drag it out. Suddenly, nobody parked on my grass anymore. For a while, things settled into an uneasy truce. Jerk finished his monstrosity of a house, all glass, chrome, and no charm, and lined the property with tall hedges so he didn't have to look at me. Fine by me, he'd come up on weekends, bring friends, drink expensive wine on his patio, and pretend he was in the Hamptons. We barely spoke, until the day his new pool drained my well dry. I came home from work to find I had no water. When I checked the well pump, it was sucking air, bone dry. The next day, my filter system was full of sand and grit. The repair bill was over $1,200. I emailed him politely, hey neighbor, your pool drained the shared well dry. I had to replace the filters. I'd appreciate you splitting the cost. His reply, one line, that's your problem, not mine. All right, jerk. A few months later, the septic tank needed pumping. I offered to split that cost too. He replied, I don't even use your system, not paying. Which was rich considering his pipes literally ran into my field. I let it go, for the moment. Fast forward a few years, the big city house market started crashing and Jerk decided to sell his country retreat. I saw the for sale sign go up one morning while sipping my coffee. I smiled. Finally, I thought, I might get some peace when someone new buys it. Then I got my idea. That weekend, I went out to the shared lines and capped both the water and septic connection neatly, cleanly, legally. Then I emailed his real estate agent. Just so you're aware, the neighboring property, mine, has terminated water and septic access. Your listing will need to reflect that. By the following Monday, there was a thunderstorm brewing, and not just in the sky. Jerk came storming down the driveway, red-faced, waving a piece of paper. You can't do that. I can, I said calmly. There's no written agreement. My parents let the previous owners use it as a favor, not a right. I'll take you to court, he screamed. You do that, I said, walking back inside. And he did. The judge ruled in my favor completely. There was nothing in his deed granting him rights to my well or my septic field. In fact, his own emails refusing to pay for maintenance proved he didn't consider them shared systems. That house sat empty for nearly a year. Nobody wanted to buy a luxury retreat with no water or working toilets. He couldn't install a new well. The protected parkland behind it prevented new drilling, and the soil on his lot couldn't support a septic field. His only option was to put a holding tank in the middle of his courtyard, right where his pool was. Not exactly luxury living. Eventually, he caved and sold it to a numbered corporation for a fraction of the original price. The corporation, of course, was me. Bought it through an LLC I had set up just for this purpose, got it for about a quarter of what he'd paid. Once the deal closed, I reattached the water and septic myself in a single afternoon. I then rented his house to a wonderful couple who were thrilled with the house and the price I kept low. Guess he was right about one thing, there was plenty of room. Just not for him. Richard walked onto that land thinking he was the main character. Turns out he was just a guest star in OP's rural revenge saga. He called you country boy like it was an insult. But guess who ended up crying over plumbing? The guy with the infinity pool and no water pressure. You tried kindness, you tried fairness. He gave you arrogance and condescension in return. But when you capped that line, OP, that wasn't just payback. That was a declaration of ownership. He tried to sell, got humiliated in court, and in the end, you bought his shiny glass monument to stupidity for pennies on the dollar. That's not revenge, that's generational justice. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.